Everybody, welcome to Newcastle Borough Council's Cabinet meeting. Welcome to Cabinet members that are joining us today. Welcome officers and also welcome councillors that are also in the room, and also representative from our press, and also those people that are viewing online on YouTube. If you'd like to see the agenda, there's a link below the video so you can look at the agenda, what we've got today. So Cabinet members joining us today. First, I'd like to welcome Councillor David Hutchinson for his first Cabinet meeting, who's our new portfolio holder for Sustainable Environment. Also joined today by Councillor Andy Fear, portfolio holder for Strategic Planning. Also joined by Councillor Jill Heeson, portfolio holder for Safety and Wellbeing. And sitting next to me is Deputy Leader, Councillor Stephen Sweeney, who's portfolio holder for Finance, Town Centres and Growth. And I'm Councillor Leader Simon Tagg. And I always have to look at my portfolio because it's a long one. Holder of One Council, People and Partnerships. We'll take our first item, which is apologies, and I've got apologies today from Cabinet member Jill Waring, which we can note those, please. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any for items on the agenda from Cabinet members? Not seeing any. Item 3 is minutes to the previous meeting. They're set out on page 5 to 10. Can we agree those as a correct record? Everybody's in agreement. And we move to our first item of business today, which is our regular Walleys Quarry update. We've got a report which I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to take us through in the moment. The report follows the usual process of looking at complaints, numbers, looking at the monitoring equipment, looking at what the council's actions have been, talking about our abatement notice, talking about the actions or lack of it from the Environment Agency. And I think really this is a key time to be sort of reviewing the situation in Walleys Quarry, as we have seen over the last month or so, an increase in complaints and also spikes in the data that's coming from the monitoring equipment. So I'll hand over to Martin now to take us through the report. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so as you mentioned, the report follows the format that you're used to. So it provides both the monitoring information from each of the 4 fixed monitoring stations that are jointly provided by ourselves, the Environment Agency and the County Council. It provides information on our complaint data and also the complaint data for the Environment Agency, and also an analysis of what is happening in response to that. So as you point out, April and May saw an increase in complaints from what we'd seen earlier in the year. So in April, we saw just over 250 complaints. In May, just over 350 complaints. And as we've become quite used to, the data from the monitoring stations in terms of the percentage of time that hydrogen sulfide is over the annoyance threshold is actually quite accurately tracking that complaint data. You'll see there's a graph at paragraph 4.3 that shows that tracking. In terms of the numbers of people who are actually making these complaints, if we look at May, for example, 353 complaints in total, and that comes from 276 unique properties. So while we're seeing some people who will, over the course of a month, report a complaint on a number of occasions, we're not seeing, for example, people who are repeatedly complaining on a given day or anything of that nature. So it's a very, I think it's quite an even-handed picture of complaints there. There are, in terms of the data, there are 2 things that we take particular interest in. One is the percentage of time that the monitoring stations are recording odours or hydrogen sulfide levels that are above the annoyance threshold. And the other piece of information is the actual peak, the highest level of hydrogen sulfide that gets recorded. Generally, we see the peaks at night or in the very early morning. And so in April, the peak level, which was coming off MMF 9, which is the Gallangale monitoring station, which you'll remember has consistently been sort of the monitoring station that records the highest levels of hydrogen sulfide. The peak level there during April was 58.8 micrograms per meter cubed. Now, in 2021, just by way of context, the peak level for 2021 was 1,350 micrograms. So it's while it's a spike in that level of hydrogen sulfide and is going to cause annoyance and irritation for residents, it is nowhere near the level it was when this was at its peak in 2021. The second is the percentage of the week that that annoyance threshold is being breached. And in May, there was so over April and May, we saw the highest for the last few months, which was just over 11% of 1 week where the annoyance threshold was being breached. Again, if we compare that to 2021, there were times when we were up around the 50% mark for the time. So there's a clear uplift given rise to legitimate complaints. But I think we do need to recognise that the situation that we're in now is nothing like what it was in 2020 or early 2022. And that's quite a difficult message to give, because for people who are living nearby, who are smelling the odour, they will be experiencing annoyance and inconvenience because of that. But it is still, in terms of the data picture, quite a marked improvement from where we were a couple of years ago. In terms of responding to this, there's two particular lines of activity that I would draw attention to. We have our own teams of environmental health officers who are actually out and about to assess and witness the odours when they are likely to be most prevalent. So what we have a tendency to do is actually monitor the weather conditions and try and identify those conditions that are likely to correspond with the times that we have that we have odour spikes. So that tends to be periods of still weather and periods of relatively cool weather when we've got low dispersion rates. So as a consequence, we've had teams out sort of 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, touring the area, responding to individual complaints so they can actually talk to some of the complainants, but also assess and witness the odours. And then using that and the data to engage with the site operator with a view to finding the root cause of the problem and the solution. Now, this sort of very much is our priority at the moment, is to really understand what is the root cause of this particular set of spikes that we've seen in April and May. The early suggestions for June are that the complaint levels are coming down again, but we need to understand what that root cause is so that that can inform the resolution of the problem. It can inform what amounts to best available techniques, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And it would also be, if we did get into the position where we were needing to take legal action, that root cause would be central to that. It's quite clear this isn't a simple process to deal with. There's a weather dimension to it. So as the weather conditions fluctuate, so will the odour. The operations on site will have an impact. And also remembering that actually with the landfill site, there are natural processes at play in terms of the degradation of the waste that's in there. So it's not a straightforward problem to identify and resolve. But through the process that we went through the court process, and we arrived at the abatement notice through a mediation process, that has given us the opportunity to have positive engagement with the operator around the issues that are coming out of this site. And we think that remains a very good route to actually identifying the cause of the problem and actually getting it solved. Over the last little while, there's been some attention on social media that has increased with these two spike months. in particular calling for the council to take action around that, to prosecute under the abatement notice. And I can really understand the frustration that residents feel about that. But what I would say is we are using the strength of the abatement notice, if you like, to have that positive dialogue, to have that ongoing dialogue with the operator about what's happening on site, what these problems are, and really providing some challenge there. Our enforcement policy doesn't allow us to simply go from abatement notice, odour in the community, to sort of formal enforcement action. We need to go through a process of affording opportunities to remedy the situation, and really it's only when that those opportunities have come to nothing that we then look to the to sort of, if you like, the legal enforcement. But within all of that, there's this issue that members will have heard me talk about before, which is referred to as best available techniques, or sometimes referred to as best practical means, which essentially means that if the operator is using the best practices in the industry and can demonstrate that, and there is still an odour off-site, then actually that's a very strong defence in terms of any activity. So again, the complexity of this, it's not simple. So it actually behoves us to work with the operator to try and actually resolve this. We have the added complication, of course, that this is an EA regulated site. So before we would go very far, we would need to actually get permission from the Secretary of State to take any action, because it's actually the Environment Agency that is, if you like, statutorily empowered to act here. So our resources at the moment are going into working with the operator to try and find the root cause of these particular spikes, because we have had a period of relative calm here, and we've now had this pop up again. So we need to understand that, try and control that, so that we have a sustainable improvement. You'll remember from when we took the initial action, there was this issue that we go through a process called FIDOL, where we look at the odours in terms of the frequency, the intensity, the duration, the offensiveness, and the location. And certainly the expert analysis that we've had so far by Ricardo, who supported us in securing the abatement notice, has identified that actually, and this will be backed up by our own officers on the ground who are witnessing the odours, is that there's a transient nature to this. So that duration is probably not being breached at the moment, and the frequency and intensity also from the expert assessment is sort of shy of statutory nuisance. And again, we've been around this so many times in this meeting. The activity that we can take will be around statutory nuisance, not just sort of an annoyance to residents, and it's quite complex. So we haven't got a straight correlation between the number of complaints triggers particular action. We're looking at the complaints, we're looking at the hydrogen sulfide levels, we're looking at the individual spikes, we're looking at what's happening on site, and we're working to try and plow our way through this to really understand, okay, what's given rise to this problem in April and May, and therefore what is it that needs to be done to stop that happening again.
Thank you, Martin. As ever, a comprehensive review of the situation. I'd like to thank yourself and also the officers, particularly ones that are going out and doing the odour tests out in the community. I think people can be rest assured that the council is doing all it can to ensure that emissions are kept low. And I think that relationship with the operator is really key, that we've won through the abatement notice, is that we can have a leverage on them to bring about improvements, when, as we've seen over the last month or so, an increase in odours, as you say, not as bad as they were during the peak times, but still a massive inconvenience to people, particularly those that are living nearby, not further away, as was previously the case. I'm going to open up now to any questions or comments. Start with Andy.
Oh, thanks very much, Simon. Yes, it's It's a bit of a curate's egg, isn't it? This really, it's good in parts. And the good part is that we are nowhere near as bad as we were. And that's, we all welcome that. On the other hand, when one looks at that graph, there is a slightly disconcerting feel to the direction of travel. I'd just like to ask our officers whether we've communicated concern about that to the operator. I mean, I think having a good working relationship with the operator is the right way forward, but at the same time, a little bit of gentle pressure, a little bit of raising concerns can't do any harm either, can it? So I just wonder where we are in terms of that dialogue and whether in fact we have voiced any concerns about the creep, shall we say, in these emission levels over the last couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. We have we've raised our concerns about both the April odours and now that May's been complete, also about the May situation, and there is dialogue that is going on around that, and you know, we are challenging them to come to the next meeting and explain to us about, you know, what their investigations are finding as to what may have given rise to this this April and May spike. But certainly we are challenging quite hard on this.
Steve.
Yeah, once again, thank you, Martin. Thank you for all your staff who are doing this sort of thing. If best possible factors, whatever you call it, is getting beaten to a certain extent, I think the logical question is what are they putting in that's beating the systems they've got in place? That's an aside. Do you still feel you get the cooperation and the communication between ourselves and Wally that we agreed on a few months ago? Because this is vital to it, isn't it? Really, what Andy said, the fact that we are still speaking to them and they're engaging with us and they're taking responsibility and not just burying their head in the sand and saying not do with us. Are we still getting that same sort of level of communication with them?
Yeah, we've got good communication with the operator at a variety of levels. So our colleagues who are, if you like, at the operational end and doing the tours at night, have good relationships and good communication with the operational staff. We have good communication with the management, and you know, I have a robust conversations and frank conversations both ways in terms of the senior management there. So yeah, the if you like, the commitment to dialogue that we came out of the mediation with, it sustains.
Members? Okay, just to sum up then, I think obviously, as you said right at the beginning, Martin, this site is regulated by the Environment Agency, and they have the powers to suspend, restrict, issue closure notices and instruct work to be required if they so wish. And because we know they have taken, you know, sort of action in the past, we have this agreement through with the legal powers by the abatement notice, and I can assure residents that are tuning into this and members in the room that our staff are working tirelessly on this. It's still a major priority for this council, particularly our environmental team, which is a very small environmental team, but is one which is dedicated to trying to sort this issue out. And to the end of keeping the Environment Agency engaged on this, I have asked for a meeting to be arranged, which will include representatives from the police, the county, the fire service, also a representative of our local MP as well, and also the Environment Agency, which will take place later in the week, and also will be a chance to put the EA on the spot to ask, what they are still doing. Let's hope they haven't disconnected. I don't think that's the case, because there has been improvement, but there are still environmental issues associated with this site which come under the permit which they have given to this company. So obviously at the next cabinet meeting I will report back on how that meeting goes. And of course, as Martin has said, and as other members have said, we continue to engage with Walleys Quarries Limited, and discussions take place on a regular basis about effective site management, and that will continue, because the best way to get this site under control is if the operator, who is in place by virtue of the permit which the EA still give them, that they get it under control, and that we ensure that they do that. And of course, we always have the escalation, which Martin has pointed out, of taking the abatement notice forward through a process which is set out, which all councils have to follow. There is no way we can circumvent any of those, or else we make the case against whichever operator we go after on any issue. If we don't follow the right procedure, then we will not get the end result which we want. There was a public gathering outside this building, actually outside this window on Friday, with some concerned residents, and I went out to speak to them, and so did the local MP. I think most people understand the situation the council is in. We have to follow a that if we need to follow the due process towards its conclusion, that this council has the the willpower to do it. We took it through the process of an appeal on the abatement notice. We won that through and we're with an agreement, and we will continue to do that if necessary. That's if the mics continue to last out until the end of the meeting. But I think recommendation before us, we note the contents of the update. I think it's been really good to sort of talk about the latest situation, which we were able to do at these cabinet meetings, and we've done that again today. All agreed? We'll move on then now to our next item, which is, well, we're going to take obviously item 5, 6 and 7 are consecutive items which deal with the regeneration of our town centre. I think we're moving now to a delivery phase on that, which brings 3 reports to us today. One is on the York Place development. The other one is on the possibilities of a Ryecroft hotel and the business case associated with that. And then finally, the replacement car park for the Midway, which is the Castle car park, which we'll be awarding the contract on that. And I think it's really important that we demonstrate that we can deliver on that investment that the government has given us. That has enabled us now to move what will be in total a £30 million regeneration of the Ryecroft area in York Place, working with partners as well to deliver that. And I think it's a really exciting proposal, and it goes back to our original blueprint, which we took through Cabinet, I think, a year or so ago now, where we've set out what we wanted for this site, and that was a footfall generator for the town, a job creator for the town, and somewhere for people to live and work. And these plans which we've got forward today, which are coming forward, and as we go along the tracks to finally seeing development happening on the site of Ryecroft and on York Place, I think we're beginning to deliver on that. So we'll take the items in order as they come. Item 5 is the York Place development award of demolition contract, and Steve's going to introduce this.
Thank you, Leader. Like the leader says, this is the start of the delivery phase now, really, rather than just talking about things. There's a line on the purpose of the report on the first page of it, and it says the replacement of this tired and underutilized town centre building, and I think that really encapsulates what we're doing with that. York Place holds an important position, linking this important Ryecroft project to the wider town centre, and its transformation will be significant both in its own right and as part of the wider regeneration of the area. So you'll walk up the high street, round the corner of the Guildhall, carry on walking, and you'll see this new building works there, and through a walkway through it, you'll see the expanse of the new developments, and it'll be a Brighton area situation than it is now, which is shabby and run down and not very good at all. Now, if you go to the museum at any time, and I recommend everybody to go to the museum, if you go to the museum, you'll find a great big picture on the wall of Newcastle in probably the 30s, maybe the 40s. And it shows what was there before the fetish that councils had in the 60s and 70s for ripping the heart out of our towns and rebuilding them with these sort of selling space things that just look awful. And what we're trying to achieve, I think, is to go back to that, go back to what was there in the afforded a bit of style, a bit of class. If you walk along the Iron Market now and have a look at the buildings there, they're not 1970s monstrosity. They're proper Georgian buildings, and they look superb. And I think this is the sort of image we're trying to get for Newcastle. And now this is a point in the developer to come and pull the thing down. And I think it's a good mark in the sand, if you like, of the progress this council's making. It's part of a £30 million scheme, like the leader says. And I think we progress this as quickly as we can and make things happen for the people in Newcastle. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Completely back what you say there, Stephen, about, you know, the tied nature of the building, and to take that under council ownership, which we use the future high streets money for, and to get that sort of under our control so we could bring forward these proposals. The demolishment of the site will be paid for through the future high streets fund as well. So starting to, you know, sort of deliver on the money the government give us as part of the 11 million future high street fund. I think really it's, as you said, Stephen, it's an exciting proposal, which will, I think, lift that whole area of town and be the connection, as you say, into the developments we make on the Ryecroft. So it's a really key one. That's why we put it first on the agenda here. And I think it's vitally important that we crack ahead. And of course, there will be a period when the building is demolished before the new construction starts. I'd just like to assure people that we intend to make it a space which people can walk through to connect, and also that it'll be tidy, and also have some examples and some billboards about what's actually going to be going on that site. That's really important, and people need to see that the demolition is part of you know, clearing the site ready for the future development. So really key that we do make it a usable space in between for the period. Open it up now to comments from Cabinet members. Andy.
Thanks very much, Simon. Yes, I think my views on architecture are well known, and the 1960s was a dark decade for architecture in this country. So in that respect, I think we're looking at potentially a very large planning gain here. I'm also heartened, Simon, about what you say about what will happen while the demolition is going on. One thing that I think I floated before, and I'd like to float again, is part of that period, of course, may well be Remembrance Day. The site does face to the cenotaph, and I think it would be nice if we could talk to whoever has the contract to perhaps put some hoardings up which will be appropriate and preserve the dignity of that ceremony when it happens, if we're in that stage at that time.
So that's a great point, and something that was on my mind, and officers are aware of that, and there will be a sequencing of the demolition to ensure there's not a dusty period, for example, around the time of Remembrance Day, because that is a key focus for the town during that Remembrance weekend and Remembrance Day if it doesn't fall at the weekend. So I think that's a really good point. Any other comments from Cabinet members before we move to the recommendations on this first item, which is the York Place Development Award of Demolition Contract? And we're asked to note the progress made on York Place project, made through the Future High Streets Fund grant funding, and two, subject to planning permission, which will be coming to the planning committee in a couple of weeks. Authorises the Deputy Chief Executive, in consultation with the portfolio holder for finance, town centres and growth, to enter into a contract with Wilmot Dixons for the demolition of existing York Place shopping complex. Do we all agree? Agreed. Thank you for that. Next item, following hot on the heels about the regeneration, is the Ryecroft Hotel plan, design and build contract and brand procurement. Steve's going to lead on this one.
Yeah, thank you, leader. It's an exciting cabinet agenda today, isn't it? Well, it's always exciting, but especially exciting today. We obviously don't just talk about building hotels. Let's build a hotel. It didn't really work like that. So we have a feasibility study done. The feasibility study clearly demonstrates the market is ready for a mid-range, recognizable hotel brand for around 110 beds with no conference facilities, which will secure an 80% average occupancy rate. So that's what the experts know more about these things than I do say that this area needs. So the next stage then, and it's on page 19, the procurement for hotel brand. This is the process through which the council can determine which hotel brand the hotel will operate under. And secondly, the procurement of a design and build supplier. Now, this is the next stage of the process. We've had it agreed. Yes, this hotel can make money. So now we look for somebody to build a thing and to brand it. And there's a few people who've got who are going to bid for this. And that's where we are now. I can assure anybody that people have told us that there's a market for this. We're not just building, build it, people will come. No, people will come if we build it, it will happen. So again, I absolutely support this. I think it's something the town centre needs. It's a slightly upper hotel than Travelodge or something. I think it's a 3-star hotel we're looking at. And I absolutely support this, and long may it go. Thank you.
Progressing, yes, Steve. I think, yeah, you pointed out the as I said right at the beginning when we looked at these three items, is it's about generating the footfall. And I can remember, been on the council long now, when we had the Travelodge development came forward, and the site next to it was going to be earmarked for a mid-range hotel, because even back then the town, the people that do look into this, so that we also needed that mid-range hotel to go along with the budget hotel. And of course, 2008 was when this was raised, just as the financial crash kicked in, and nothing ever happened with the follow-on application. So I think it's ripe time that we do look at this, and I think it's something, as we can see in the report, has certainly got feasibility, and is something which we should be able to take forward. So any comments from Cabinet members? No. So we've got recommendations before us. Note the progress on the feasibility study. Authorise the Deputy Chief Executive, in consultation again with the portfolio holder, to look at the branding of the hotel, and authorise again those same two people to commence procurement of additional design costs and works, and to receive further Cabinet reports as we update going forward. So I think this is the start of a process here, which will hopefully lead to that central part of the Ryecroft site being obviously developed as a hotel. All agreed? Now, at this point, I must apologise and go back to the item. Go back to the previous item where we did have one of our councillors wanted to speak, and we were so excited to move on that we moved on because we wanted to get to the hotel, that we completely missed, obviously, the councillor's input on the York Place development. So if you can forget everything we just done for the past few minutes and go back to the other item, I'll invite Councillor Brockie, our town councillor, to come and either ask a question or make a statement relating to item 5, York Place development. And my apologies for not bringing you in sooner.
Oh, no worries, Chair. Thank you. Regarding item 5, it is noted that authority is being sought for the awarding of the contract for the demolition of the existing buildings in York Place prior to the long overdue redevelopment of the area. It is concerning that, quote, delivery options for the construction of the scheme are continuing to be explored. Can we be assured that more detail about these options will be put before the public in time for them and their elected representatives to get a finalised, fully informed account of what exactly is planned for the new development and at what cost?
Thank you for that. I think just addressing that, I think it's a really important point, and we did cover some of that in our statements earlier. I think that planning permission that will come in will give a flavour of the site. There are visuals attached to that of what the site will look like. I think as we move forward with demolition, that then creates the space for a new development to go in, and also the added interest in that the site is developable. I think already we are beginning to see some interest, and we know things can stack up in a sense of tenants for these for the units that are going in there. And I think through the mechanisms of our scrutiny committee, and also this cabinet, and also via our press releases around this, we can inform the public and keep them updated as we go forward on what is a really important site for the council. I think there'll be more news coming out on the back of this report in the future. And as it did say in the recommendations, we'll be having further reports coming in the future. Anything further to add, Steve?
To me, you talked about the York Place being tired and run down or something, didn't you? I can't remember exact words you used, which I agree entirely with you, and that's nice to say that you agree with us, which is the whole point of it's part of the point of the exercise. It's a tired building that wants getting rid of. So I thank you for your support.
Thank you for that. We'll move on, and we do. I will bring the councillors at the correct place in the future, I reassure you. If it looks as if I'm not, please stop me. But we will move to item 8 now, which is item 7 is the Castle Multi-Storey car. Always going so well, wasn't it? It's this, yeah. Item 7, which is the Castle Multi-Storey car park award of contract. Steve's going to lead on this.
Yeah, equally important to everything else, really, is the delivery of the Newcastle car park, which is a cornerstone of the Ryecroft development, because its presence will lift the town. A large, well-lit and safe car park would encourage people into Newcastle day and night, and in due course allow us to develop the Midway and some other of our car parks. Now, it's also noted as well, I think, that when you have a hotel, one of the requisites for a hotel is they want parking. And they want a car park next door to it, which is what they're going to get, which is all tied in the business. But the new car park, I think this will go through planning in 2 weeks. And if it gets passed, we're looking to start in the summer to actually build the thing and to have cranes on site and people who actually see developments rather than talking about it, actually see it with their own eyes. It'll be an open area, sort of non-threatening car park. We'll rationalise some other car parks because we won't need so many car parking places as we'll have for this. and it gives us an opportunity to do something with the Midway car park, which I think everybody agrees really is just awful. It's of its time. It's a 1960s concrete monstrosity. The car parking bays aren't big enough. You can't get electric charging points in there. It really doesn't have a lot going for it at all. And personally, I think it's about time it got replaced, and this is the start of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and of course, I think we've been caught in the crossfire of the city and the run up to their elections on car parks seem to be the only things that people are building. I think this is, as Stephen pointed out, is a replacement car park, and also will lead to a rationalisation of all car parking spaces. So we have the correct amount of car park spaces in our town, and also I think it's as you say, enabling the Ryecroft development for all of the components of the Ryecroft area and for the York Place, which we've just discussed. This provides a car park that will be available for those developments to use. So I think it's really important that we do this, and it is the cornerstone, the starting point of this development. So I think I've seen some comments online. I think it was from some learned organisation that writes on Twitter that said, "Oh, you seem to have demolished the car park that was the multi-storey car park that was on the Ryecroft. And then now you're going to demolish Midway, and then you're building a new one there, and all of these stories. I think, we are where we are now. I think there's been a lot happened on the former Sainsbury's site, and part of the decision making in the past, which was not part of my decision making or anybody on this cabinet, was to demolish the very small multi-storey that was on there because it wasn't fit for purpose, and there were other plans in the pipeline then which didn't come to fruition. No earth was broken, no building took place, no demolition of the old civic offices took place, but that has happened now under the Future High Streets Fund money, because we've had the government's backing to bring forward these proposals. And we this last item on the regen is the first part which people will see begin to be built on that site. And it will replace our tired Midway car park, which has had many millions of pounds spent on it in the last 20 odd years. And I can assure you much more would need to be spent to even keep it as it is, never mind bring it up to speed. As Councillor Sweeney says, you couldn't do EV charging points in there. You couldn't do pay on exit. It's obviously floods. It's got concrete problems and has had for many years. So I think having this fresh new Castle car park as the first development on the Ryecroft is an enabler for the rest of the developments on that site. So open it up to cabinet members before I bring in the councillor who wants to speak. But Andy.
Thanks very much, Simon. I think you've outlined the case there very eloquently. We do need a car park if we want to regenerate our town centre, make sure it's an attractive place to come to. We do need to provide adequate, safe and modern parking facilities, and that's what this will do. I think the other thing that's important to remember as well is that it will enable us to redevelop other parts of our town. I look forward to the demise of the Midway car park, again, hardly a building of architectural significance. By having a new, modern and well-located car park, we will be able to regenerate that area, and I think make that side of our town centre very much more attractive. So I think this is in some ways almost the keystone of the whole development stuff. If we don't do this, everything else sort of falls down. So this is something we should get on with, and I very much welcome this report. Andy, Jill.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of the sentiments already expressed by other councillors, but I particularly am pleased that it will be more fit for purpose than certainly the Midway. We have people nowadays with a lot bigger cars, particularly disability vehicles. It'll be a safer place, it'll be utilised, and particularly I think with the pay on exit, which will encourage a lot more people to use our car parks and remain in the town centre.
Members, okay, I'll ask Councillor Gorton to come to the hot seat.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, Cabinet members and officers. I do have a specific question, or should I say two questions. And they are as follows. I'll just put my glasses on. Right. If it is the Borough Council's intention to provide reserved car spaces in the Newcastle car park for tenants of York Place, staff and guests of the new hotel, employees of Aspire, plus occupants of any Aspire accommodation built by its proposed headquarters, can the leader estimate the number of car spaces which will be available to members of the public? And will this figure exceed or equal the number of spaces that will be lost when the council disposes of the car parks listed in paragraph 3.2 of the report to Cabinet this afternoon?
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Gordon. If you could return to your seat, that's brilliant. And Steve, do you want to address that issue?
Yeah, thank you, Leah. Yeah, interesting points. York Place tenants, they won't have reserved spaces. Hotel staff and guests all have to pay, and the hotel may well have some parking for vans and trucks that won't fit in the car park height-wise. And we want white van man trade during the week. Aspire permits maybe, but on a limited basis. 455 spaces all available to the public. And as you know, of the 939 spaces currently available in the car parks earmarked for closure, the actual usage is around the 350 mark. So we have enough for everyone, we are sure. And if it is full every day, excellent. And we won't sell one of the earmarked car parks. It's simple as that. Yep.
I think, yeah, there's flexibility in that because we've identified some of the surface car parks which could be used as brownfield sites for building developments on, which of course, as we're coming on to the local plan in a bit, and we've tried to have a brownfield first policy, but of course it's a flexible because we own the sites at the moment. So if more, if it comes to the pass when the new car park is open, there's more spaces required, we can always flex that later down the line. But I think what we're having here is we're having a realistic approach to how much car parking this town needs. In the next few weeks, we're going to see more cycle routes going through the town and more pedestrian access to the town and some of the more outlying car parks. So I think it's right that we do rationalise in some sense as well to bring the car parking to where we need to. So I think it's different from what we've seen in Stoke, where it's multi-storey car parks being put up all over the place. This is a direct replacement for the one we've got, but also takes into account a reduction to meet the needs of the town going forward. So thank you for that point in question, Councillor Gorton. We have recommendations before us that subject to the planning permission being granted in a couple of weeks, that the Deputy Chief Exec, in consultation with the portfolio holder, enter into a contract with Morgan Sindall for the construction of the Castle car park for the sum of no more than 12 million to commence on August 2023. Enter into a contract with Morgan Sindall to carry out enabling and infrastructure works across the car park with wider Ryecroft site for a sum of no more than 1 million. Commence the associated process of traffic regulation consultation for the orders. Note the car park will be closed. Note that car parks will be closed and disposed of for housing in accordance with the updated asset management strategy, which will be published in the autumn, and complete all the legal documentation to finalise the land assembly. All agreed? Thank you for that. So three really important items there, I think, that move the town centre forward and start to deliver on the High Street funds money which we've received. And people, I think, by the end of the summer, early autumn, will begin to see some activity on both those sites, which I think is really good to show that the town is moving forward. We now move to item 8, which is another important item on this agenda, which is the proposed to consult on the first draft of the local plan, and hand over to Andy to introduce this.
Oh, thank you very much, Simon. Yes, a very, very important item, and I think important not just for this group, but for all of us on the council in general. Before I start, I would like to extend my personal thanks, and I hope I can associate all members of the Cabinet with this, to our team on planning, who have worked very, very hard to get us to this stage now. And there is literally thousands of pages of supporting documentation going into the local plan, which has been worked over very hard. Also, I think I can assure members that when the plan is out there, it will be a lucid and clear document. Everyone will be absolutely clear about what's going on in this document. So I would very much like to thank our planning team for putting all of this together. As we look at it, we can see in the report, we've got here setting out what the report is about. Again, as you've just stressed on a previous item, Simon, that we have looked very, very hard to develop on brownfield. If you look at 2.4 in the report, before moving elsewhere. Also, I think it is important to remember what we're doing here. This is a consultation exercise. What I am not, no one on the council is a prophet coming down from the mountain with tablets of stone. We are putting suggestions out there. As you can see in 2.13, the call for sites is still open for sites to be submitted. So we are looking for suggestions at this stage, as well as comments on the suggestions in the plan. Now, manifestly, extra suggestions which are going to be taken seriously are ones which obey the rules which are set out by national legislation. There's little point going out onto a football pitch and then suggesting that one should play a game of rugby. We have to play by the rules, but nonetheless, the call is still there for extra suggestions. The other thing that I think perhaps we could have waxed more lyrical about is the following paragraph, 2.14, to remind everyone that this isn't just about development sites. This is about a whole range of things, and it's as much about protecting our borough as building in our borough. This is the way we can ensure that some of those green spaces that we've put aside remain green. It's the way that we can have democratic control over development of our community. So it is really very, very important. There's a long section on consultation. As you can see, like with our previous issues and options consultation, we're running this longer than we have to do. So we're over the statutory requirements by about 33%, I think. We're going to hold public consultation events. There's 7 of those scheduled. There's a virtual consultation event. The other thing that I think is very, very important to stress here is that we will accept all comments upon the plan. Last time round, sadly, there was a rumour which gained, unfortunately, a bit of traction that you had to send things in electronically. That simply isn't the case. There will be a portal, and in fact, I had the meeting this morning to ensure that we are checking the portal to make sure it works and that it's easy to use. But if people want to write in, they can write in, and those comments will be taken as seriously as anyone else's comments. So there is a very open gate there, and we want to encourage people to do this. I think for all councillors, not just cabinet members, the message out there is, if you want to say in the future of your borough, respond to the draft local plan. Now is the time to act. And coming on to now, we can see section 5 of the report outlining other options. So doing nothing, as you can see from 5.1, simply isn't an option. As you can see, 5.2, saying, oh, we're not sure what's coming in the future, so we better not do anything now. Little bit like, I suppose, a rabbit staring at the headlines, isn't really a sensible option either. If we do that, we leave ourselves open to developments that are not welcome now. The government is strongly suggesting to us that we should continue to go ahead and we should not pause. That is the advice I'm hearing from our local officers as well. The best way to safeguard our borough is to have a local plan. And the best way to have a local plan is to get on and have a local plan. So that is what's going on here. The consequences of not doing that are set out very clearly in section 5.3 of the plan. And I don't think I want to be associated with any of those consequences at the end of the day. We are going to have this come to scrutiny this week. There will be a briefing for all members on this again, so that when we get inquiries from the public, as we will do as councillors, everyone will be up to speed on this. I commend this to you. Again, I would like to thank our officers for the very hard work they've put into it, and I would urge everyone to engage with this process. That way, we can keep development democratic.
Thank you, Andy, and I'd like to echo your thanks to the officers involved. And three of them are in the room here. They've helped us move this forward to the stage we are at the moment. Sure, they'll take back our thanks to the other members of the team that aren't around the table today. And I think it is a milestone as we try to attain a local plan. This council hasn't, had a local plan that's relevant since before 2012, and I think it's high time that we pressed ahead. We've had the sort of the cul-de-sac of the joint local plan, which got us nowhere there and wasted loads of time. And we've really, since we made the decision, I think it was the end of 2020 to crack on with this, we're now at the stage where we can have our first consultation on the draft local plan. There is all more opportunities in the future for consultation before we finally submit to the government. And I agree with you, Andy, cracking on is the thing to do. I think we've seen councils that have paused their local plan, and you look at them and you think, well, you had elections in May, didn't you? So that's why you paused your local plan. They'll now be up and at it again to try and get, because they see the benefits, as Andy's pointed out, of a local plan is that it protects the local area. It sets out a framework for development, and ours will set out a framework for 2040, and allocating the space for houses and businesses and for community facilities, and protecting those open spaces, particularly those 60 open spaces which we've protected, this administration has protected. And I think a lot of those would have been on a list for development in the past. They won't be anymore. But we do have to use green space, and we are asking in the consultation people's views on using some parts of the green belt. I think that's appropriate, because development has to be in the right place, and development has to lead on to the expansion of the borough, really, and for a population that will increase, and for more job opportunities for our residents, for the businesses to move in over this this period up until what is 2040, which will cover the period for the plan. So I'm really pleased that we've got to this stage. Thank you for your work on it, Andy. And I'll open it up now to comments from cabinet members. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things really. It's good now that the two main political parties, Conservative Party and Labour Party, are speaking with one voice over house building. I think Conservative Party might be slightly less enthusiastic than the Labour Party, but nonetheless, at least we're all talking about the same sort of thing. Well, I would recommend to people that this isn't going to go away. Not doing it is an option. Not doing it is bad news. It's asking for people to comment, to make things on it. Well, please do it. Please respond to the survey. It's there to be responded to. It's not as just a tick box. It's there for people to put their thoughts on. So please, please, please reply to it. Thank you.
If people don't think that we take on board what people say in consultations, I'll just point out that in the last consultation, which was on the options, we did choose what the public put in their request, that we chose the lowest gross figure, which is what we've chosen. We base this first draft of the local plan based on that low figure, the government minimum as it was at that time. So we've certainly done, I think, what people would ask, and we'll certainly be looking very closely at the outcome of this consultation later in the year before we put in that final draft to consultation, before we hopefully submit it to government and finally get a local plan which can guide the development of the borough going forward, and also save us from that speculative development. There are areas such as Baldwin's Gate, which is a perfect example, which has really suffered from us not having a local plan for the past 10 years plus. I think to get that in place with those restrictions that will come with it, and guidance as well. And also the final point I make before I bring in the one of our councillors to speak is that this also is going to be the greenest local plan that this council has ever brought forward, is in keeping with what local plans should be at the moment, about controlling development, also making sure that when development happens, there will be an offset of biodiversity and nature as well. And this is going to have the latest policies relating to the sustainable environment as we bring it forward. And that's in keeping with what's happening across our county, because, as I said earlier, most councils are now reviewing their local plans because it is a process that continues to review anyway. I think we never have a settled local plan. Once we've agreed a local plan, we're looking at the refresh and the next phase of it. That's how things go. And I think the point which some people will try to make, I think it's a petition that will be coming to council in July, that we should suddenly stop and wait for the government of whichever flavour to make their mind up. There'll be a general election in a year or so's time, that we'd never actually get to finish the local plan because things are changing on a yearly basis. The government always has an idea to bring in planning changes. I don't think there's ever been a time that I have been on the council where there hasn't been a review of planning and we're waiting for the next level of planning diktat centrally, which then gets overturned in the next review. So I think to crack on is the sensible thing to do, and I think the report supports that, as well as you pointed out, Andy. So unless there's any more cabinet members that'd like to speak, I will bring in Councillor Jones, if you'd like to approach the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And having read the draft local plan, which is found within the links on the public report, I'd like to echo what's been said by members of Cabinet. My thanks to officers and members who have put in quite a lot of hard work in producing a report, some of which is absolutely excellent work, and I do put that on record. Could Cabinet update on how the changes to the legislation regarding housing targets, which have moved from a statutory minimum to an advisory minimum, has been considered post-consultation on the earliest stages of the local plan? Thank you.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Fear, Andy.
Yes, thank you. And I'd like to thank Councillor Jones for saying thank you to the officers. I think we have got, whatever we think about the conclusions of the report, I think we have got a good report and one which is accessible to the public. And that's a very, very important thing. I think the simple answer is in 5.2. As regards all this, at the time of this report being drafted, there has not been any final announcement on this subject. This is the consultation through the National Planning Policy Framework. So we don't know what the government wants to do. We have no idea when the government is going to respond to the consultation exercise that's out there. And again, I think we need to have very, very firm cognizance of the following paragraph, which points out to us the consequences, the very dire consequences potentially, of not acting now. In particular, you can see this question about the 5-year land supply, and the end of that thing say the preparatory work demonstrates the council is right on the margin of a 5-year land supply, so the risk of not having an available supply is therefore a high risk. In other words, doing nothing gives us a high risk. It's as simple as that. And then going on, this would result in planning applications being determined in line with the presumption of sustainable development. And then the brackets are the key here. The devil is often in the detail, isn't it? i.e. sites which are not allocated. In other words, it's open season. We lose control over where there will be development in our borough. Those, I believe, are the consequences of not acting now. And I don't want to run that very high risk. And that is why I think we should be pressing on with this plan.
Thank you, Councillor Fee. Completely agree with you on that. So we'll move to recommendations, and that is that Cabinet approves the draft local plan for consultation purposes, that we delegate to the Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning to authorise publishing the draft local plan as per the regulations to finalise the public consultation arrangements, which of course, as you say, is going to be the longer public consultation than is required and is carried out by a lot of councils. We're going further than that. And undertake any minor correction adjustments to the consultation document as may be required. And then 3, approves a period, as I've just said, the 8-week consultation commencing 19th of June 2023 until the 14th of August on the draft local plan regulation 18, along with sustainability appraisals and also the habitat regulation assessment, which goes on to what I said earlier about the sustainable nature of our local plan. They will be in those documents. And then receive a report to future meetings summarising the findings of the process. And then importantly, 5, notes that members of the Economic and Place Scrutiny Committee will have a presentation, and you'll be there, Andy, to answer questions. It will be available live on YouTube if any residents want to tune in as well on this Thursday, on the 8th of June 2023. And there'll also be a members briefing, which will be focused on helping members to respond to any issues that are raised by residents through the consultation as we go forward. And that will take place on the 15th of June. Do we all agree those recommendations? Thank you. We'll move then now to item 9, which is the adoption of Staffordshire Adaptation Strategy. And I call on David Hutchins for his first Cabinet report. Not building you up that much. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The Newcastle Borough Council is an active member of the Staffordshire Sustainability Board. For the benefit of anyone not aware, the Staffordshire Sustainability Board was created in 2022, and the purpose of the board is to gather the elected members, principally for sustainability and climate change portfolios from all the councils across Staffordshire. This facilitates discussion on the relevant environmental sustainability issues. It allows debates on any matters affecting multiple authorities and decide outcomes and objectives for collective projects. The aim is that Staffordshire councils recognise that adapting to climate change is a vital part of planning for the future. Our local climate is changing in Staffordshire. In 2022, the temperature in Staffordshire went to 40 degrees centigrade. And since the year 2000, we have had at least 15 significant floods across the county, 9 of them storm events happening between 2018 and 2022. Along with changes to the average temperature and rainfall, we will also have more extreme weather in Staffordshire, meaning increased chance of rivers and streams flooding, flash floods all times of the year, more extreme heat waves, drier summers, and water shortages. So the vision is for a resilient Staffordshire that will be attractive, safe, and a healthy place to live and work, offering an excellent quality of life, a thriving environment, and a prosperous economy. As a member of the Staffordshire Sustainability Board, the Newcastle Borough Council can help facilitate action contained within the Staffordshire Adaptation Strategy. My recommendation to the Cabinet members is that we adopt the Staffordshire Adaptation Strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. I look forward to you joining us as a new Cabinet member on the Sustainability Board. I think we are going to be the first council in Staffordshire to adopt this. The county are planning to do it later in the summer. So I think it's really great that, again, Newcastle leading the way, as we have done on this agenda under Trevor Johnson previously. I look forward to that continuing under you as Cabinet member. I think this is, as you say, a really important document that enables us to put in place those things which will help us to mitigate some of the issues. Not all of them are caused by climate change. Some of them are caused by, cutting down trees upstream or downstream, or different ways of which we're managing our land. And I think that's also part of this as well, how we manage our land locally. And of course, as we talked about on the previous item, we're going to be, and we've also signed up to the Nature Declaration, and we're also going to be part of a nature recovery strategy, as we will be looking to ways to bring back nature, and through that sustainable nature, and help us to actually stop flooding events before they happen by planting trees and flood meadows in the right places. So I think that allows us to do this in this strategy, but we can't do that on our own as a borough. And I think through the Sustainability Board is the way to do it, working with across the county, all the districts and the county council. And I have the pleasure of being the county council's representative on the Sustainability Board, and it's done a lot of good work going forward, and I think it can do a lot of good work going forward in the future. And we'll have more reports coming to this cabinet via yourself, David, on this agenda, which is an important agenda, but also an exciting agenda as well, because we're actually improving local environments for people and hopefully preventing problems further down the line by such things as this Staffordshire Adaptation Strategy. But thank you for introducing it, and the recommendations are there before us. Any other comments from Cabinet members? Not seeing any, so recommendations are we formally adopt, as David has asked us to, and the council has to facilitate actions within the strategy as it's through its membership of the Staffordshire Sustainability Board. All agreed? Thank you for that. We now move to our item 10, which is the Financial and Performance Review Q4 from 22-23. And the first is a financial update before we move into performance details. And I'll hand over to Steve for that first.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. A couple of things before we move on to the main part of it. And I think it's worth saying this. I'm pleased to confirm the Council's draft statement of accounts for 23-24 were approved for publication by the Audit and Standards Committee ahead of the 1st of June deadline. Now, there'll be plenty of local authorities who won't be in that position. Plenty of local authorities in Staffordshire won't be in that position. The external audit of the accounts will commence during July and is expected to be completed prior to their final presentation on the 11th of September. This report in front of us now focuses on reporting the provisional outturn position against the budget and the key elements of the statement of accounts. I'm delighted to report a small favourable variance of £8,000 against the budget for 2023-24. The financial year has been a challenging one due to income shortfalls, a pay award that was in excess of that budgeted for, and inflationary increases impacting the whole country in fuel, gas, and electric. These challenges have been embraced and fully met, primarily via use of the cost of living reserve, which was established to meet inflationary demands, because we could see this coming, and from interest that has been received on cash investments throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on that? Okay, thank you for the financial report. We'll move on to the performance data, and as usual, we'll go through it not necessarily page by page, but priority by priority. And I think the first page is that overall view from the quarter, which now, of course, is historical, and it does have Trevor Johnson's name against the the sustainable environment portfolio indicators, because at the time he was the cabinet member. I think David might like to comment on some as we go through. But the first one is showing that we do have one off target, which we'll cover in a moment, which is the sickness absence, which is in a long running red, so to speak. But moving over the page to the first priority, which is one council delivering for local people. And we have some indicators there under the name of Councillor Trevor Johnson. Do you want to comment on any of those at the moment? Don't necessarily have to, David. No, okay. Drop you in the deep end. And then we've got, you're about to press your light there, Steve, are you, on the housing benefit? No.
Nothing really to add apart from that. It's very good.
Okay, which is good. That's what we're talking about, good and bad. And then we come to the average day's sickness. Now, I've asked officers to do, because this has been a persistent red, to see if we are an outlier when it comes to councils of our size. And we've done some sort of benchmarking, and we're more or less there are councils with worse sickness than us, there are councils with less, but we're actually in the so it's not a Newcastle problem, but I think it's happening to business, it's happening to in the public sector, is this sort of hangover from the pandemic, really, where sickness is higher than it was before. And we have, as it says there in the comment section, there are a number of things in place to help us to control that internally. I think it's something which we will continue to watch, but overall the trend is beginning to turn and go down in a number of areas of sickness, and let's hope that continues. But I'd like to thank the active management that's going on by our officers on this, and of course any staff member that's off sick is a concern to us, and we want to get to the bottom of why they're off sick, give them any help that they need, and also get them back into work as soon as possible, so assure members that is happening. Moving on then to the other indicators on that page are showing green over the page, even though mine are in black and white. I don't know anybody else's. It's a bit difficult. We moved to the percentage of customer hub requests, again showing a good percentage. Then also the call handles by the customer service centre showing to be on target as well. Moving on to the next page, which is page 133, digital online transactions, showing an upwards curve, which is, as we've introduced our new website, goodness me, a long time ago now, it is showing dividends with more people interacting with the council online, as well as being able to phone or visit here, which we've kept those things open as well. And then the unique visitors to the website has shown an increase, which is of course in line with the previous indicator of more online transactions. I think our website is a lot better to navigate and to get to the information which you require now than it used to be, and that's shown by the increased usage. Council tax and rates, Steve, anything to add on those? Council tax
is very, very marginally under, but considering the fact there's a cost of living crisis at the moment, I don't think that's that bad. It's 1.1% below target, so I think that's a decent result. And the one below is non-domestic rates, and that's on target. Okay. And then the next page is all about recycling and waste. David, anything to comment on those at this stage? Other than we're all greens and on board. Yeah, great, thank you. And then we've got the litter indicators. Again, showing green, but I think it's something we want to continually concentrate on, isn't it? And there's always a litter hotspot that we have to sort out. There's always a fly tipping incident that we have to keep on top of, and we have the teams that are doing that. So I think rest assured we'll try and get to those as soon as they are reported, and that's the key, that they are reported so that our staff know about them. Same with graffiti and same with fly posting. So that concludes the first priority. Second priority was a successful and sustainable growing borough. We've got indicators there. First one from you, Steve, which is on the property vacancy of our investment portfolio. Yeah, like it says, within target range with a current 9.4% vacancy rate. And that's our not only our shops in the town centre, which we have a very small number of, but also our business units across the borough, which shows that there's a vibrant there's a great demand for them. Yeah, we can't have enough, really. And we hope to build some more on part of the former Zanzibar site, so we can increase the amount of workspace which we have to give out to businesses. And the next series on this priority are all in the planning area, Andy. And would you like to comment on those?
I don't think there's a great deal to comment on here. Some of these figures, as you can see, are skewed because we're meant to be comparing them against central government metrics, and central government metrics ain't there. I think some of the ones which are a little bit lower, as are indicated, they're still above the targets that are there. We set ourselves very high standards. So I don't think there's anything here that we should be particularly concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our third priority is health and active and safe communities. The first page is about community safety and ASB. So, Jill, any comments on those?
Yeah, I'm quite pleased with how we're dealing with these. Obviously, it's never going to be happy faces on mine purely because of what they are. But yeah, with the partnership working and various funding we've had and how we're working towards dealing with these and the conferences we have around antisocial behaviour, I'm quite pleased with how we're responding to them.
The next series are for Jill Waring's portfolio. I'll cover them in her absence, but I think on J2A, a good picture on the with the satisfaction and the growth in membership. But I'd just like to make a comment about the museum. Actually, I think it's really going from strength to strength. And anybody that was in the Brampton Park on Saturday, and the museum was packed out. I've been there a few times in the last few weeks where there's been events for our 850 celebrations. I think it's really coming into its own as the home of our 850 celebration. So I think it'll be a really good year for our museum, and of course I think we'll see that in the visitor numbers increasing significantly this year. And I think the challenge for the museum is to carry that on, isn't it, and keep with that excellent meeting space we now have there, and also the exhibition space that's been brought in with the renovations and the extension that took place. So hopefully going from strength to strength. But I think this year will be a really good year for the museum, and see its use and importance to the life of the borough, which is really good. Next set of indicators are in the housing area, which comes under Jill. Any comment on that?
Yeah, they are difficult times. We have seen a rise in people referring in either homeless or potentially homeless. And again, I'm quite pleased and impressed with the team that are working with these. It is a difficult situation, and we're doing the best that we can.
Last indicator is town centres for all. We've got three indicators here. First one is the car park usage. Steve, any comments on them? Seems an upward graph.
I haven't saw that one. Is the markets, and I do feel in certain elements it's sort of plateaued a little bit. So myself and the officer in charge are working towards certain other things that we can do to lift it up, because it does seem to have hit a sort of peak. And I think we need to look at some other strategies, and we're looking at them, and he's got some good ideas. So I imagine we'll see an improvement soon.
Okay, yeah, really pleased to hear that, Steve, because again, our events markets are brilliant. I mean, today is the antiques market full. The stores are, we get the same on Thursday. We have our events markets on a Sunday, they're full, but there are days when the market is really lackluster, isn't it? So there are ways of improving that, but also maintaining and going even further. And of course, we do have Future High Street Funds money, which is allocated £300,000 towards some market improvements. So we're making sure we get bang for the buck out of that money. And the last indicator, really, which hasn't been mentioned, is the footfall indicator, which is showing an increase again. Again, this is a bit, we have discussed this previously at Cabinet, because based on sort of, I think now based on the information that the Business Improvement District gives us, which is related to people using Google in the town or being signed on with their data, which isn't necessarily everybody's got their phone signed on when they're in town. So I think it's just a snapshot, but it is showing an increase, which is good, which shows that more people are coming into the town centre, hopefully spending money, hopefully spending time, and hopefully enjoying themselves as well, particularly in the evenings with the nightlife and the restaurants, which we have. So that concludes the data for this quarter. And I'd like to thank Cabinet members for their continued work on and making sure we keep that good performance. And of course, the red of the sickness absence is something which officers, and particularly our officer Georgie is a HR officer, is looking into to try and see if we can improve that figure going forwards. So we are asked in the recommendation to look at the data and the performance. We've done that. All agreed? Okay, item 11 is our forward plan, which is attached at the end of the agenda. We usually go through it page by page, and I will do that now once I find my way to it. Here we go. And I think page 1 is on page 152, which covers this June agenda. So does page 153, includes the June agenda. And then we have our July agenda starting on page 154, as we've got some big items there, particularly relating to the Kidsgrove town deal, progressing that in the shared hub. And there's also some procurement contracts and transport contracts and debt recovery policy in July. And then on page 155, some more July items there as well, including our Walleys Quarry update, provisional financial outturn, and also the paper on the LGA corporate peer review, which we'll be very pleased to make public in July, which was the review we've had, seems ages ago now, isn't it, back in the spring, which was some authorities, leaders and chief execs from authorities from outside coming and giving us an overview and a mini inspection, and the results of that will come forward in the July cabinet. And that concludes the forward plan on page 155. All agreed? Thank you. Now we move to item 12, which is urgent business, not received any. So that brings us to item 13, which is disclosure of exempt information. I resolve that the public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following reports, because it's likely they be disclosed for exempt information as defined under Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act. I so do move. All agreed? Thank you. So we'll just stop the YouTube and ask our member of the press to leave. Councillors are able to sit through this item if you wish. Okay.